So at that time you were tightened. You had to tighten up how you breathe. You couldn't show. You had to fit into those corsages. You barely could enjoy your food. You were not laughing. You had to observe any expression, very calculated. And if you they had to breathe the salt to at least get air back into their stomach. So that was control. So if people have control over you, you tighten up. And this is taking an end. We're moving into the era where we're not controlling each other, but more enjoying who we are ourselves. And then coming with a new view on how I can enjoy another person.
So we're back with Miley Nelka, and on Tuesday we were just about getting into a really fascinating conversation about how separating the word spirituality is and oneness, and my feminine images behind me. So Miley, over to you.
Yeah, we were talking about creation and spiraling. So any time I have to look at your wonderful drawing of a woman, and it really pulls out through the spiral, right? For me, it is like many things. We were speaking about the two circles, overlapping circles, and what they represent. Now, if you turn those around, you can see the woman that you have behind you fits right in. So the energy lines that come right from the ground go within our body. The energy that comes from the cosmos, from the skies, comes down us, goes through our body, and they meet. I mean, they go really around everywhere, but they meet and there's an impact. And then this is what produces our force, our life force, to move forward, and also whatever we desire to bring out the world. If these two energies wouldn't meet, we would be flat like a pancake, right?
Yeah.
Because they're working within us, and to become really aware and take acknowledgement of that, and that it is a unique expression, whatever, in what moment those two energies do to my body, as they do to your body, Suzanne, and everyone who's now watching or listening. This is really fascinating. It gives us, in a way, empowerment to say, oh, I'm not worthless, which I think many of us still have, that we are not important in anything that happens on this earth. What happens in our sensual life. So if I'm aware of these energies, it gives me pizzazz, because I can play with those, I can use those, I can create with those energies. I can let them go and simmer in my belly, in my female organs, right? Because they're really in the lower. From martial arts, you also learn that, right? Put all your power and your weight into that area, because then there are also these spirals that come together from the front and the back. And we've neglected this a lot. As I'm sitting now and you're sitting, we're sitting too much. There's not enough flow. So for us women, it is really nice to create movement, to walk a little different, a little bit more broad-legged.
Oh.
Yeah, so we can swing our hips when we walk. Especially as Westerner women, we're trained to walk like military walk. Heel down, boom, 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 right? Tight, upright, breast out, but it's an artificial breast and chest out. It's nicer if our back relaxes. And I'm carrying, word pride is not the right thing, but knowing again that I am a beautiful being, that I'm important, that I'm loved, that I give love to anything that exists, and that I'm interchanging with everything. So then, our head, we start looking at the world different. Then the head is up, it doesn't drop like this when we walk through the street like this. right? And then when we look this way, this chest automatically comes and widens and broadens, and the back can relax. So this is an energy especially women and men, there's no difference for me. When we walk, there is this little pizzazz that's very attractive for the opposite sex. Also, it is, or not opposite sex, depends who your partners are. But it also sends out acknowledgement. Others acknowledge you. They sense you. They notice you move different. And to bring all of that, right? Is this knowing of my senses. I can sense my whole body. That is sensuality. Before
Wow.
we go into the sexuality, which all it goes, the same thing. Connections to everything.
So this is really fascinating, because last week over the past 2 weeks, we had Dr. Ann Whitehouse talking about being in our woman power and really getting us grounded. Not grounded isn't the right word, but centered in our power, and owning ourselves. And one of the key things that she spoke about is it coming from the heart outwards, like radiating outwards. And that's very similar to what I can hear you're sharing. And what I particularly hear, which is amazing, is the practices that we can bring to that, in terms of bringing like an infinite, like a wiggle, a kind of infinity or a swaying to our walking, which is quite sexy, but
Yes.
is something that we practice. And as you know, like, I'm about empowering women to get their sexy back, and like really like grab onto life, and like, well, not even grab onto life, like life grab onto us, in terms of we direct our lives. And having that practice of like swaying our hips and moving ourselves physically, that really, I can really sense how that's going to shake up the energies, but also like have us experience our bodies as the beautiful organs of expression in the world that they are. So I just wanted to say that, Mylene.
Yeah, so observe cultures where women walk this way.
Which
right?
one?
If we start observing, they also have a smile on their face. Doesn't matter how much income they have. I've been, because they know what they are. They live themselves.
Which cultures in particular, like?
You can start really quick. If you go farther south in Europe, you notice it already. The Mexicans,
Yeah,
the
I can hear it
Asians
in
got
Latin
tighter
America,
tools
yeah.
because they were also trained, right, not walk. The feminine, the feet were bound. So the Africans, they have a walk. They walk their goddesses, right? They dance their god. They on a regular basis go into these energies and dance them with. The Aborigines, they know that. Pretty cool. Anyway, Native American, they all have that sway. Even I would say, if you go up tribal, the Laplands for us in the north, if you look at our northern tribes, they have that as well. So I would say maybe all of those were never influenced by aristocrats or the way of thinking, of being controlled, how your body functions, right? So at that time you were tightened, you had to tighten up how you breathe, you couldn't show, you had to fit into those corsages, you barely could enjoy your food, you were not laughing, you had to observe any expression, very calculated. And if you they had to breathe the salt to at least get air back into their stomach. So that was control. So if people have control over you, you tighten up. And this is taking an end. We're moving into the era where we're not controlling each other, but more enjoying who we are ourselves. And then coming with a new view on how I can enjoy another person.
Wow, so this is interesting, because one of the things that I've realized for myself is, you referred to like corsets, really, and
Yeah.
like being up. And so one of the things that I've realized, you know, I've written a book about discipline, and like discipline, and I talk about discipline in terms of discipline in our lives and being disciplined, but also like being disciplined by others, you know, and because I am interested in domination and submission, and like that kind of restraint. And what I found is that, and I think this really relates a lot to what you're saying actually, which is there's the space of being directed, and like that masculine energy that's very pointed, that's very forward motion, and like very directed, and like,
Don't call it masculine. That's military. Very
okay,
different.
military, I thank you for correcting me, military energy. But then there's also this sense of, you know, the swaying and the flow and the wiggle that we talked about, and it's in the balance, like that military energy does have a purpose, it does have a function, it does provide something, but it's like we, as particularly I would say Northern Europeans, have been trained very much in like, this is the dominant way, like this is the way to go, this is the best one. And this kind of sway and the kind of like, you know, being like a river and allowing the flow, like that's not okay. And actually, what's most effective in relationships with people, also in life, in connecting with nature and being with the earth, is knowing which one is appropriate. Is like, sometimes it's right to be military and directed, and sometimes you just want to be with the flow. I mean, that was one of the reasons, you know, I know that you like, you have a podcast, and like we've both been on podcast interviews, and some of the time I'd be interviewed by people and they're like, I'm going to ask you these questions. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, okay. And sometimes they're like, what questions do you want me to ask? I'm like, I have a set of questions, here you are. But it's like, you know, for me, and what I said to you when we were talking about doing this, let's have a conversation. Like, let's see where it goes. Like, we're just going to talk. Because I personally find that much more interesting.
And this goes to, you know, back to each person has their own rhythm, and to let each other find that certain rhythm, that movement, and flow with the energies when they're needed. Right?
Exactly.
So if you have to maybe run, but then you use energies, you don't push yourself. And this is a fine tuning, right? When we were in Ice Age, all Europeans moved down to Africa. They were there walking that in 8 days. No one can walk this nowadays in 8 days anymore. They didn't stay up here when it was cold. They went down into where it's nice and warm, and then in the spring they walked back. The Aborigines, the Native Americans, when their women were taken away to schools, right? They were suddenly walking 60 miles. They brought lunch to their children, and no one knew why they could bring that lunch to the children. That was too far to walk. And then they would be already back home when the children were brought back by the bus. So if we connect with energies and we feel our energy, we increase a flow, a movability. When we let ourselves be pulled by a mountain, you walk extremely faster, more agile. You go and feel everything that is below you. You feel everything it's on top of you. And it's not a theory I'm speaking. I've experienced it myself. I have cerebral palsy. Everyone knows I can't walk and run like a normal. I don't have that gait as other people. But when I'm in certain energies, I can be faster than anyone else. I'm being pulled by a mountain, by a rock. I can jump up like a goat, up the mountain. No one can follow. So then it's when you connect to this true, you move into your natural state, then you sense those. And this is, I think, where we're all moving into, back to feeling our natural state and living our natural state, what we are designed to be and not what we are told to be.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to finish for today. It's 11:45 on Friday. Well, you know, I do it every time. I leave it hanging. We will be back on Tuesday at 4:30 London time, when we will be talking more about jumping up a mountain like a goat, and just being tapping into the energies that are all around us. I'll be back talking with Mylene Elker on Tuesday. In the meantime, have a very great weekend, everyone. You will find out more information about Mylene down in the comments under the video. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Goodbye.